humans were exposed to a more advanced civilization in the past. And we've been taught so many things, including art, including when we settled and we became, farming and we started building cities and stuff like that.
You're the only resident paranormal guy I know in Bahrain. Really? I mean, clearly, I'm not in the know because the way you looked at me just then seemed like.
Actually, now that you say it like that,
is there a bigger community?
No. You feel like there is a thirst for a community. Like people ask questions and stuff, but everyone's really.
Do you think they want to ask questions, or do you think they just want to have their experience validated?
Both, at least, but there are some curious people. But I think overall, there's still like a bad stigma on the whole topic.
Of aliens or paranormal?
Everything that is not mainstream peer-to-peer science proved 100%. You know what I mean? Like, if anything related to personal experiences with the paranormal, alien abductions, demons, extraterrestrial, interdimensional. But there's out of body.
There's a lot of like especially older Arab women who believe in like jinn and
but that has a religious tone to it, which I find weird, to be honest. Because when you look at religion, especially the Abrahamic ones, you see how much there is magic involved. Like you know what I mean? Like there are in Christianity, there are miracles, there are angels, there are beings that are sent, messengers, prophets. Same in Islam, same in all of that. But then when you call it magic, or when you say, or when you try to explain it, everyone kind of stops like, whoa, this is not okay. This is not under religion banner. It's just like, I'm just changing the terminology, instead of saying an angel came from heaven, if I say an interdimensional being showed up from the fifth dimension, this is now you're going into another religion. This is
that's fascinating. So they don't really see a connection between those two
at all.
points.
It's just change the label and you're off completely, and it becomes like, this is the work of the devil, and this is like.
Because what fascinates me is that, especially in Islam, there's that old adage, right, of Allah has 99 names, right?
Yeah.
And so it fascinates me that people are so against the idea of, mumkin, angels, or fifth dimensional species.
It feels like as long as the name is written in a holy book, then we're okay with it. But try to give it a different spin. Try to explain it through, let's say, quantum mechanics, for example, or try to use tools to measure it. That now you're going in a direction of this is not okay. This is haram. This is heretic in Christianity and stuff like that.
I mean, I love the use of word heretic. That hasn't been used since the 6th century.
Exactly. But trust me, I've heard it recently quite a lot, and this is what also I find very weird, because especially when it comes to Christianity and Catholicism, that it changed so much over the years and the centuries, that whatever we say now and whatever we pray, the way we pray now was considered heretic. In the 6th century, in the 1500s, 1400s, women could not go to church, for example.
The Bible wasn't Latin.
The Bible was in Latin. People didn't even understand what was going on. They just go stand, the priest prays, and they leave. So that's what fascinates me about the use of these terminologies, that people seem to forget that every religion changes over time. Like, sure. It's a constant change and when the human brain, when we understand more things, we end up, explaining things that were happening in the past, and that's how we evolve.
Do you believe, though, that we're going forward with our understanding, or do you believe we're going backwards in our understanding?
We're definitely going forward.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I'm on the opposite. I think we're going backwards in our understanding.
In what way backwards?
So I don't know how well you're familiar with this. The Pentagon just released, I think about a month or even maybe 6 months ago at this point, whole classified files about UFOs.
Of course, yeah.
And the world didn't care.
Yeah.
No, this was during the Trump administration at the end.
Yeah.
Nobody, if you would have said this in Obama's administration, in not even Joe Biden's, but if we go back to maybe even Clinton,
Bush or
Bush, the world would have gone crazy.
It went actually crazy because I think if you remember in 1997, we got our first image from Mars, and there was this valley. It's very well known. There was an image of a face. It's kind of like in stone, broken, and everyone went crazy and like, oh my God, aliens, ancient civilization, all that. And then, scientists explained that it was just the lights and the rocks and so that was like, it was a big thing. But I think what happened now, especially in 2020, like I think what they did was very smart, the Pentagon. By the way, I'm all about conspiracy theories. So
Which they did fits perfectly with our show. We normally do business, but today we're doing conspiracies.
This is what it is. And what I found was it was very smart the way they did it, because 2020 was so heavy on everyone. Like the amount of things that happened, like it kind of became a meme and a joke about like, okay, well, what's the next month? What is going to be happening? From pandemic to war to explosions to all the low-cost, everything. And when it was around October or November when it was the footage was released, and at that time everyone was extremely exhausted, like emotionally exhausted and desensitized to anything. So everyone was like, might as well just that happens, or yeah, sure, okay, like I'll.
Thank you. I agree with that.
It's like the time they picked to release this stuff was really studied on a psychological level when everyone was numb, like everyone is extremely exhausted, tired. Everyone like, okay, sure, might as well. And they say it in a way where they're just UFOs, which is unidentified flying objects, right? So we're not saying they're aliens. We're just saying that we don't know what they are. And they kind of just left it there. And you can see that from then till now, there's this slipping every few months, every year, a new thing comes related to this topic. Like recently, China said that they found something through their satellite or whatever. A couple of months ago, almost as well, where the Pentagon again released new footage showing what new videos and the army talking about it, the Air Force and everything. So I also feel like this is a way for them to kind of make people accept the idea slowly before going all out.
I think people have become so, I don't know what's the right word, disattached, that if desensitized maybe, yes. That if you would have pulled someone to the side and said, you know what, spaceship landed in Manhattan, they'd be like, get out of my way, I gotta deal with my own shit.
Yeah, exactly.
What do I care about Manhattan? There's some alien I gotta worry about.
Even I feel, even if they actually show footage, a lot of people this is what we refer to as like cognitive dissonance, where they can't accept new information up to that level. So everyone's gonna just like relegate it to, yeah, that's just like a movie, or I'm sure it's a viral campaign, or I'm sure it's like, so it's just like, we've been hammered for so long that we're alone, you're alone, nothing is happening. All the events that people have experienced, with aliens, with abductions, with things. No, this is all wrong, nothing. That, you're programmed to believe that. So that's the first response. If they reveal something, most people are going to be like, yeah, no, I don't believe it. They're going crazy.
You know what fascinates me is the idea of the paranormal and the alien conspiracy, because I always find them there to be like the same coin, but on two different sides.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I feel like it's almost exclusionary. Like if you believe in aliens, you're not into ghosts. And if you're into ghosts, you're not into aliens. There's very few people who are like, yes, I'm down with the ghosts and I'm also down with the aliens.
Because I think even recently, like people have started to understand that when we refer to aliens, it doesn't necessarily mean the Greys, Grey dude. There's like people have had several experiences with different types, and they even refer to it now as more like an interdimensional thing and not just through a physical mean. So like when you say like if we're gonna go all out and say, okay, aliens visited Earth, for example, okay, they must have done it through means that we don't know about, because when you talk traveling faster than light, interstellar travel and all this stuff, it just doesn't work within the realms of physics that we know of and we understand how our reality is built in the three-dimensional world. So now there's a bigger understanding of these beings, that they actually have different ways of going about things, different way of traveling through. Like when you talk about how I need to travel from one point to another point in the three-dimensional world, I have to cross it. And I can't do it because I'm a three-dimensional being, right? So I go through the space, I go through height, the 3 dimensions.
X, Y, and Z.
X, Y, Z. And I take time to reach from one point to another, which is the branch of time that I can, experience. But when we refer to, like, let's say, a being from a higher dimension. Okay, let's say a fourth dimensional being. This being can go through time, not the way we see it. So it can pop through different areas of the earth, and you can only see it appear at one point and then disappear and appear another point, because it took another route completely. It took another dimension.
Well, what you're talking about is fascinating, because it's the same way as how on a two-dimensional paper you can see three-dimensional image, right?
Exactly.
It's by shading. And so for I'd imagine for a fourth dimensional being, but technically we live in the fourth dimension, so a fifth dimensional being would experience time all at the same time.
Yes,
right?
and can go through it at any time, at any point.
Sure.
So yeah,
if he can exit that, we're assuming that they can also exit the fifth dimension at that point to
go to
down.
a lower dimension. Yes,
right.
Correct.
Because as far as we're aware of, we cannot go down to the third dimension, and we have not yet figured out a way to get to the fifth dimension, if at all we will be able to do it as a species.
Yeah, but again, the idea of going through to another dimension, we have to forget the thought that we do it through a three-dimensional mean. You know what I mean? So it's like we can't say that one day we as a species are going to evolve enough to reach the fifth dimension or to be able to travel there, because everything that exists within our reality is the three dimensions. So there is no way to go out of it within those means. There are different ways of doing it. Like some people experience astral projection, some people have an out-of-body experience and stuff like that. They're doing that without the three-dimensional mean of a physical body.
Well, I mean, as long as you can somehow control entropy, I could see somehow a being transition into pure energy, because according to the first law of thermodynamics, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only be transferred. So in theory, the energy that occurred at the beginning of the universe and the end of the universe, that energy has to dissipate and go somewhere,
exactly.
right? It just doesn't just stop.
Yeah, and it just doesn't get formed out of nowhere. So it's still, I mean, and this law is still operating within the three dimensions that we know and understand. So when we look at higher dimensions and we look at, let's say, the entire universe or the Big Bang Theory and all that, we are only witnessing that there was a start and an end, or we will witness an end to it, because that's how we perceive. It's all about our perception that there is a time. But a higher dimensional being will not perceive it in that way. It's just a state of existence that's always there. It's always been there. It just does not have a point of beginning and a point of end.
Well, from a physics standpoint, we're so ill-informed at this point, right? We're not even sure if we're living within a cosmos or if we're living within a black hole.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
we've not, I think the last probe that they sent outside of the solar system just disappeared.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so everyone's now kind of like shit scared, saying like, oh, there might be a black hole right at the edge of it. But if it is, it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no doing about it.
Yeah. That's exactly that. It's not that we still have basically barely covered the surface of anything in related to physics and stuff like that. And that's why I feel like people should have that open-mindedness that at some point, even the physics we know now of were not common and were ridiculed and were made fun of.
Absolutely.
And were considered, magic or whatever. And it's just a slow process of understanding things. This is why I was saying that we are going forward and not backwards in our understanding of the things, because that's how we operate as a species. Like if you look at what, regardless of different beings and stuff like that, but if you look at our understanding of religion or of God in general, it has changed so much over the last 10,000 years.
Okay.
So at first, civilizations used to put God, I mean, we do it till now, where we put God in things we don't understand. We think things we don't know how they operate, that's where we place God. So if you look at an ancient civilization, let's say the Egyptians, for example, they didn't really understand how the sun affects the Nile and how the Nile gets flooded and how there are beings that are alive and animals and stuff like that. So they put gods in all of these things. There was, Ra, the sun god, god of the Nile, god of the crops, god of the rain, night, and stuff like that. Because they didn't understand that this is how nature was operating. And then over time, civilizations kind of like evolved, and when you get to the Greeks, for example, their gods became more abstract, and their gods are about beauty and philosophy and war, stuff like that. So it's no longer about that how nature is operating. It's about what we understand as. And then when the Abrahamic religions came, now we understand science, and we understand philosophy and thoughts and mental stuff. Now we put God in creation, because we don't understand how we have come to this world and how we've...
So I'm going to have to interrupt you on this, because I'm going to have to push back on that a little bit, because we often have this weird assumption that our ancestors were morons. Because, I mean, from a scientific perspective and their engineering skills, there are still things like the aqueducts, there's still things like the famous Spitfire. There's other technologies that we still haven't rediscovered on how they have done it in the ancient world. I'm just talking about from when you're talking about like the artistic and religious perspective of these cultures, what they've left as a heritage. They've only left the murals of what they deem the most beautiful, right? True. They didn't leave really the engineering capacity, the knowledge base of it. And so it's such a risque approach to look at our history or ancestors and be like, nah, they don't know.
But that's what I'm not saying that they did not know. What I'm saying that what we know now came from them. So it's the opposite, actually. Like, they have put the base, and that's what we are on. It's this highway of information that we wouldn't be able to reach here if it wasn't for them. I say, for example, like the most creative human to ever live was the first one who created a painting in a cave. Like, that person made something that did not exist before. He actually created an art. Everything we do from that point till now is just a copy of something else. Like, it just evolved over time. And we have, artists today, we have designers, we have everything. But that human was literally the first person who looked at something and expressed himself in a completely different way.
Now this is interesting because I would see that a little differently. In the animal kingdoms, animals all the time, including us, of course, because we're part of the animal kingdom, leave scratchings, markings on branches, trees, in order to refine the place or to mark it. So there comes into a question whether or not those mural paintings were an aspect of him trying to remember, or like how an animal would scratch a tree, as a wayfinder, or as a warning to the rest of its species, right? So it's not then so much creativity, but more than, how can I implement that? Because that's what humans are really, really amazing at. We're really amazing at seeing nature and then reusing it for something else.
But then why wasn't it just like an arrow or a scratch? Why was it depicting a scene where like there were hunters and they were showing the animals and they were actually telling a story?
Here's my theory. 2/3 of your brain is centered around the visual cortex. Taking like images and seeing takes enormous strain on our brain. And when if we want to remember something or memorize something, it's much more easier to memorize it as a pictures format, like as in a movie. Right? So if you're trying to remember dates or names or whatever, if you imagine it as an individual, it's much more easier to remember the context and details. So my counter argument would be that they drew those murals or those paintings because it was the easiest one for them to visualize. Do you get what I mean? Yeah,
but that's a form of expression that did not exist before, and they're not even using, like an animal would use his own claws, right, to scratch or something. Like, someone at some point thought, like, I'm gonna use a material that I'm gonna take from a place and put another. It's not that they scratched or something. So even the method they use was really advanced. If you know what I mean. Like, we're not just talking about someone who scratched in the back of a cave, a scene or something like that. We're talking about someone who actually thought of, I'm gonna take this liquid material that I find in front of me. Maybe it was his blood, maybe it was paint, maybe it was, I don't know. But what they took, and then they continued the motion where, like, okay, I'm gonna draw something that I saw. You know what I mean? So it does feel like that's a very advanced thing to do, and it's not by accident or just because he did not see a painting or something else that was done by an animal.
Can you look up pig painting? Because I know that there has been pigs that have painted. There has been
pig gus. So that's the one, I'm guessing.
Picasso the pig, conquered the art world. Her paintings sell for thousands of dollars, and now she's even collaborating with a watchmaker. I like that, the collaboration. Well, she chose the
collaboration. Yeah, sure.
She did research.
I'm gonna work with that one.
But yeah, there has been monkeys. There's been pigs.
Okay, but then if we're gonna go down that route, then it's gonna, go into another theory, which I really subscribe to. I think there's a website actually, .org.
Picasso, the first one, I think.
Yeah. So obviously this pig, it has paint and brushes and stuff like that, right? So there is a civilization or an entire advanced civilization that is providing this stuff. You know what I mean? And this is what a lot of people, including me, believe, that humans were exposed to a more advanced civilization in the past. And we've been taught so many things, including art, including when we settled and we became, farming and we start building cities and stuff like that. Because there is a shift that basically happened overnight, which is very weird. Overnight, as in like considering how much, because they say like the first Homo sapiens, as far as that we have most in common with as the modern human being. If we go back in time, and the Homo sapiens, it's called Homo sapiens, sorry, and they first appeared in Africa about 1.8 million years ago. That's how far we can trace them back. And for 1.8 million years, they were nomads. They were living everywhere, and then they spread all over the world and all of that. And we barely have any information about them. Nothing. They did not have, as far as we know, they did not leave behind any monuments, any religion, any mythology, anything like that. And then out of nowhere, around 10,000 years ago, suddenly we start building cities. We settled in Mesopotamia.
Before that. 50,000 years, I think, is the first human civilization or something like that.
I'm talking not in terms of small settlers or like the 150 community and stuff like that. I'm talking about actually building cities, putting laws in those cities, and fully operating with religion, politics, money trade, all of that. That, if you want to count the entire history of humanity, this is like overnight. It happened overnight, and no one has an answer for it. Even historians and archaeologists and everyone who talks about it, they just say that, so the earliest thing now that we have seen is in Turkey, and it's a site that's called Göbekli Tepe, and this goes back to around 12,000 years ago. And this is the earliest site that anyone has related to any form of worship or religion.
What you bring up is something very interesting. There's an author. The book is called Footprints of the Gods, if I'm not mistaken.
Fingerprints of the Gods.
Fingerprints of the Gods.
And Graham Hancock.
Graham Hancock makes exactly
I have
the point
that book. I've read it. Yes, exactly.
What you're mentioning, and that he makes an argument saying that there's potentially even more historical sites buried below. I think, what was it, 10,000 or 5,000 meters under the ground?
Yes.
What he claims, there might be that the history of man is much older than we prescribe to, and he puts it back to almost 200,000 years.
Exactly.
Modernly,
which is before the Ice Age. Yes. So because the Ice Age started around 200 to 100,000 years ago, and everything melted around 12,000 years ago, and that's what's happening now. Is that some people are noticing there are almost like tops of monuments in Antarctica because of the melting of the polar caps. It seems that there is a civilization, or there was a civilization that was present there, which, if it ends up being true, it reshapes everything about human history, because this means that people were building monuments and were living in that life before the Ice Age, which is before 200,000 years ago. So that's a whole different way of looking at human history.
So do you believe in climate change, first of all?
As in we are causing it?
Yes, man-made.
We are maybe accelerating a little bit, but it's a natural phenomenon that has happened throughout the history of Earth. Like it's always changing.
There's been
ice age and then melting and then different.
There's been about 7 or 8 great extinctions on
yes,
planet Earth.
Yes, exactly.
We're going, according to most researchers, we're going through our 8th one currently.
Yeah.
There's Alex Jones, who believes in the carbon theory.
Yeah.
Meaning that by introducing more carbon into the planet, we're actually producing more oxygen, which would be better for the entire planet. He's claiming that rainforests will come back. All on that notion. Whether or not that's correct, it is very against mainstream acceptance of science. What scares me more is the oxygen content on the planet. The reason why creatures are small, especially insects, is because of oxygen. Once oxygen increases, I mean, if you go back, can you look up some images from insects around million BC? They were huge.
God. Do I want to see that?
We're talking about like 18 feet.
Wow. Okay.
They were not pleasant.
So like millions of years, everything, including like the dinosaurs and all that, like everything was a lot bigger.
Yes, if I'm not completely mistaken. Can you type in super large insects? Oh, whoa! That's as big as this hip. Can you type in prehistoric insects or prehistoric giant insects?
This is terrifying.
That's what terrifies me. As the oxygen content rises, so does...
Animals will, you mean like insects will grow in size and all that?
Whoa, like you won't believe.
I mean, I don't think we'll be around for that, so we're talking about like
it won't be our
a million years worth of evolution.
I mean, intellect does also increase with higher doses of oxygen, just because the body is more efficient of using of energy.
Yeah.
So it could be the sign of how we enter into a higher dimension simply because we become more and more advanced.
That's a very interesting thought, that we're doing it through physical means and then it's evolving in that way. That's pretty interesting, actually. I've never heard of that before.
Well, that's a leading theory. I mean, the human body will obviously get larger.
Yeah. But see, that's the thing, is I don't subscribe to anything where like we have to be afraid of anything. I think everything that's happening is natural. Even it was a comedy, George Carlin. He was talking about how the people were against plastic being removed and what we're doing now with that. And he had a very interesting thought. He's like, maybe Earth wanted to extract plastic, so she created the humans so that we do the job. Like there's this understanding, I don't know why, where like everything we do as humans is unnatural. Like what we're doing now with Earth, for example, and we're extracting the oil from the ground and we're hurting this and all that. All this is fine when it comes to Earth. Like Earth adapts to all the changes. We are maybe affecting our own environment. We need to adapt to new environment. That's okay. But there's nothing about what we do is unnatural, because we came from this nature at the end of the day. You know what I mean? So the way we act with Earth is part of our genetic. It's part of who we are.
So there's a lot of branch out theories when you mention that. I mean, some people believe that our purpose of our species is to create the next species, which would then be AIs. That's what some people subscribe to.
Yeah.
I hear where you're coming from.
Like I don't get the fear of transhumanism, for example. Like there's always this big thing like, oh my God, transhumanism and chips and all that. And some call it the mark of the beast. Like if we put a chip in all of us and stuff like that.
Well, I understand where the fear is coming from. And I'm sorry to interrupt you. And the reason why I understand where the fear comes. When was the last time you took your phone and you turned it into black and white?
Never.
Try it. Put grayscale on.
Okay.
And it changes your entire experience with that device.
In what way?
You start realizing how badly your brain is set up on seeing color, on seeing saturation, on seeing hue. Once you take out that mobile phone aspect and you look back in the natural world, I've noticed how things have gotten grayer. Because it makes sort of sense, right? If you look at a picture that's with a lot of colors and then you look around you, you pop out and see more colors.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So if you just understand that the color aspect of your mobile phone already controls so much of your perception of the rest of the world, then when you think about how much of the data that you're being fed to, especially on your social media.
Yeah, of course. That's a different thing. Like to me, it's not, it's, as with everything, we can always use it for good and for bad. like nuclear energy, for example. You can use it to stop, removing oil from the ground and have, give electricity to an entire town for X amount of years and all that stuff. But people have used it for weapons and to destroy. So everything can be used for good and bad, even social media or this access to information. Either you use it so that you educate yourself, so you evolve, so you understand different cultures, different people, how they think, or you use it to numb the brain and to go on TikTok challenges and to, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's not the tool that is the problem, it's how people are using it.
And that's why I'm saying we're going backwards, because I some of the things I've noticed in especially in Western societies and Western worlds, they're less caring to their fellow man. They are more self-centered. If here in the Middle East, if you have a problem or anything else, you can knock on your neighbor's door and they will try to accommodate you or help you in whatever aspect, generally speaking. Yeah. Not everyone. UK, it's not the same.
But in the US, for example, if someone goes missing, then they all gather in the town's hall meeting, the building, and then they go out on...
Not in California.
Yeah, but that's the thing. So it's like, it's not a cultural thing. It's what's available and what's not. And even they would still go on like search parties and stuff like that. You don't have that here at all.
How many homeless people do you see here in Bahrain?
Well, Bahrain is a very different situation.
Come
ask me how many people I see in Lebanon.
Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait.
The Gulf. The Gulf is a very different situation than the rest of the Middle East, which is different than the rest of it. There's a culture thing that exists here that is not somewhere else, but those cultures have things that are not available here. So I feel like there's this balance thing that happens, and I feel like each culture or each region brings something to Earth or to humanity that the others don't, and that's where there's a balance that creates.
I would agree with you for the last, let's say, 1,000 years or so. I think in the last 100 years, we have seen a shift of Western dominance onto all cultures like never before.
Yeah.
Of course. When people say, U.S. versus China, U.S. won a long time ago. And they won because if you look at the rest of the world, what products do they buy, what clothes do they wear, what languages do they aspire to learn?
Sure.
What is the cultural archetypes, right? It's Friends.
Yeah.
The TV show.
Yeah.
Who doesn't talk about fucking Friends? A show that came out 30 years ago.
Exactly. It's still number 8 or 7 on Netflix.
My point, right?
Yeah.
You don't see China coming out with any TV shows that the world is talking about. We are seeing some Korean dramas.
Yeah.
Because Asia started waking up a little bit and being like, hey, you know what? Maybe we don't...
also have things that we want to share with the world. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. My sister, who is currently 13 years old. I'm sorry if I got your name wrong, Alia. No, my age wrong, Alia. They grow up so quick. She came up to me once and said, Hamad, I just want to make sure you're not a trans hater, are you? Transphobe. And I was like, what are you talking about? You're in Saudi Arabia. When was the last time you went You're 13 years old. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But that's U.S. influence.
That's U.S. influence, and that's it all falls under, like you were saying, about they're just pushing different thoughts and ideas and agendas into your social media feed, into your head, to distract you from
Thank you.
more important things.
Thank
from
you.
asking the right questions.
Thank you.
And
that brings me into the alien discussion, right? Is because when we ever talk about aliens, it's almost always centered around the U.S. Very few times do we talk about sightings in general.
No, actually, that's where that's what mainstream is in terms of the U.S. But every time I do a research, every time I read a book or something related to this, I talk with people who have experienced something. It's actually always outside of the U.S. and it also falls under this where like ancient civilizations had more connections and more experiences with aliens or with beings that were from other worlds, extraterrestrial, if you want to call them. So we don't get hung up on aliens, a lot more than we did here, than the US did. So you see a lot of alien influence in ancient mythologies.
Sure.
In ancient religions.
Sure.
In tablet, inscriptions, in drawings. It's really weird that people don't really look into it, or like the mainstream stays away from that.
Murray, can you look up some pictures of ancient aliens or like ancient
I'll tell you what to
paintings.
look at.
Sorry, I'm just
search for ancient alien bag. So, for example, this bag doesn't show in this picture alone, but it appears in almost 9 to 10 different civilizations who were like thousands of years apart and thousands of miles apart. There's no way for these people to be in contact. And yet they all drew certain things that were exactly similar to each other. And it really raises a question, because we are supposed to think that there was no way these people were in contact with each other. They did not see each other's works. They did not know each other existed. And yet, when they look at their own gods and how they're portrayed, they have similarities that is astounding. Like even in their stories as well. It's not just what they left in carvings and stuff like that. Even in how humans were created by the gods, it's almost similar. That we were always created by an advanced being, whether you want to call it God, or you want to call an alien, or you want to call whatever, and we were created to be their slaves, but to create something, to work there, to do their bidding, to do their job for them, because they didn't want to do it. We were all subjected to natural elements by these gods, and the same stories keep jumping from one civilization to another. It's just that the names change every once in a while. Like, for example, in Abrahamic religions, okay? In I think in Islam as well, this exists, where Noah and the flood, okay? There is, wait. I think there is. And
don't look at me, I'm not religious.
Okay.
These two guys are the religious ones. I'm out.
So let's say in Abrahamic religions, all three of them, okay, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, there's a story of the prophet Noah, who was told that there is a flood that's going to come because God is no longer happy with humanity, and we want to wipe out and press the reset button. But you, because I admire your house and your family, you will build this ark and you will stay in it for this amount of days and all that. All fine. And this is like one of the most important stories in the religion, in Abrahamic religions, and he's one of the cornerstones of the prophets and stuff like that. And yet, if you open Mesopotamian mythology, you find that this exact story happened with another guy who was named Atrahasis, and it's written, and it's actually carved in the story of Atrahasis about the flood, where in that story, two gods, in fact, were fighting each other. They were brothers, and one of them did not like humans, the other admired humans, and one wanted to destroy humanity, and the other came to Atrahasis and told him, build an ark because I want you and your family to be safe.
Okay.
So this is someone came at some point and changed certain elements of this story, instead of having multiple gods, put one god, and changed a few names here and there, and now we have an entire religion that came out of it.
So I agree with that. I mean, there is also an ancient Egypt religion that is very similar to the story of Christ. Being 3 days born after being resuscitated. No, resurrected. Sorry, 3 days after his death. That he was born that he was the virgin, born of a virgin, contained the Holy Trinity.
Yeah, exactly.
So, when I hear stories like this, there was a very famous paper published in the early 80s. I forgot the name of it, and it made an argument saying that all human kindness is a Darwinian response.
Okay.
In that in order to ensure that our offspring survive, it is more beneficiary from an evolutionary standpoint to make sure that we're kinder and selfless to our children.
Oh, fine.
Right? From an evolutionary biology perspective.
Makes sense.
So I wonder how much of these stories have an evolutionary biology perspective on it. Because we see it, because we can either look at it from two perspectives, right? We can either say, look at these images. Can you go to the images back again? We can either say, and we look at these images and be like, okay, well, there was an intervention from either a higher species, whatever that may be, or it could be a biological response, something in our DNA telling us, hey, you know what?
Build it like that.
Build
Draw
it like that.
Okay.
Design it like this.
Sure.
I don't think we'll ever maybe know the answers in our lifetime, but definitely eventually.
Yeah.
You know, as we undo our DNA, I think we'll come to a conclusion eventually.
Yeah. But at the same time, when we look at these ancient civilizations and how they interpreted our existence and certain things, it's like we are discovering now that they got a few things correct. Like, for example, a lot of mythologies talk about how our species was created by the gods, and they were created from the gods. So, like, even in Christianity, like, in his likeness. He created us in his likeness, something from him. Mesopotamians believe that one of the gods sacrificed himself, and from his DNA we came out, and stuff like that. Okay. Which was mentioned in one of the movies.
Prometheus?
Prometheus, exactly. A lot of Hollywood ideas.
Don't use your conspiracies on terrible Hollywood movies.
It's a horrible movie, by the way. Like, I was so sad. But so with that, this is how those people, understood, or they said that this is how we came to be and stuff like that. And now, recently, like within our DNA studies, there's on the second chromosome, they say that. Like it's the chromosome where it was latched to another DNA, and that's how humanity gained consciousness.
Okay.
Like we don't know from which animal that did, because we have evolved, like I said, from different ancestor, different animals and stuff like that, and then when the Homo erectus, and then after that the Homo sapiens, and then the Homo sapiens, which is us, and stuff like that.
When you talk about our ancestry like that, there is a lot of subdivide into it, right? Neanderthals are not our ancestors, they're our cousins.
We share the same ancestor. That's what they say.
By the way, there are still this comes into dangerous 1920s science papers. A lot of this, what we're about to say, has been
debunked.
Not debunked, mostly banned.
Okay, banned.
People don't because it's a very dangerous topic, because the more you go into that sector, the more likely something like Auschwitz or China right now, what they're doing to Muslims, will reoccur.
Okay.
Genocide is always very closely linked to it. There are Neanderthal-like cousins. I forgot what the rest of their branch of names are. That we have found in Asia. We have found in Australia. We have found in North America. So the dangerous part about it is that we as a total species right now, we see ourselves, be it white, black, or red, or whatever you want to say, that we're one species. However, according to that scientific study,
that we're not.
We're not.
Like subspecies, different species are sub and others are more advanced.
Exactly. Kind of like how you have a squirrel that's red and a squirrel that's
I get it.
Black.
Yeah.
It is it's been shunned very harshly.
Of course.
Because of.
But
there's this, I forgot the name for it. It's called not eugenics. It's called embryotilerianism.
I think
like
it was mentioned in the movie Django Unchained. Did you watch it?
No.
So there was a scene where like the main bad guy, he was extremely racist, obviously, because they owned slaves at the time, and that's the time period of the movie where he's talking about the science of like the skull and how. And he actually takes a skull and like he cuts it in the scene, and he's showing how the difference between a white person and a black person.
I know
like
exactly what you're talking
their
about.
Their skull are different, and it's like they affect different parts of the body. So, I mean, that's what I'm about to say is extremely racist and wrong, but that's the movie.
We'll edit these parts.
Sure, if it's too much.
Yeah, we'll be fucked by Google or YouTube.
But anyway, so he says something which is like. It's scientifically proved, quote unquote, that the species are different from each other. The races are different from each other. Obviously, it's wrong and it's debunked and it's illegal and it's banned and all that stuff.
Dan, can you look up what the science is called for measuring different skull sizes and races? There is a science for it. I forgot what it's called. It's been like.
I think it's anthropology and.
We'll find it. Hopefully, you'll say.
Craniometry?
Craniology? And what does it? I can't read what the description says. The main part of the skull and the human is subject.
That's the one. The measurement of bumps in the skull. It's down there. The Wikipedia. Phrenology. Phrenology. That's the one.
Yeah, I remember that phrenology. Greek name for mind, also logos for knowledge. Oh
wow. Okay. Is a pseudoscience which involves the measurement of bumps.
Yeah.
Because it says like the skull has different bumps, and each one kind of affects the mental, like whether you're creative, whether you're more science-oriented, whether like that.
It's a very dangerous subscience, especially for a species that we are driven to categorize people in tribal situations, right?
Exactly.
And it's scary. That end of the knowledge tree. If you type in different ancestries by continent, we should be able to see from the Neanderthals, which was mostly European, to the various other...
Yes.
And some of them are still alive today.
That's where like the science, because what they're saying is that the only line that continued are the Homo sapiens, and everyone else died.
There are still
weird.
There are some branches still around, especially if you go into like South America, because there's still a lot of tribals who have not been discovered. They're still untouched human beings that have never seen civilization.
We should keep it that way, by the way, for them. Like they should not see other civilization. Like
you would kill them. Simply alone the parasites on our bodies would kill them. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's how
what happened in South America.
That's how it happened, and to the Indians as well in North America when white man brought
and they also gave them like
of course.
Did you know the story? They gave them diseased duvets. Yeah.
So nice.
Yeah.
Just proud of the history.
Well, the Vikings were first in North America, which is crazy.
Yeah, because they found settlements there as well for them, and
Yeah, they were the Vikings were the first.
But I think this is what, like, going back to the different ancestors that we had and all that, and what they say.
Look up for Neanderthaler and I mean, I really don't know how you'd even look up. I wouldn't even know how to begin to search. But I remember seeing different subspecies, and I remember them specifically saying in the article of this study that Aborigines are closer connected to their ancestor than they are to our traditional Homo sapiens.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
To be honest,
So. Can you look up Homo's family tree maybe, and that'll maybe show it up?
Yeah.
And just go in images and see if we can find it. I remember seeing it. There are variations still on planet, but I don't know if even Google would allow you to see it anymore. Here, go on the left, left, right there. That one.
Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. Oh,
and then
that's dangerous.
That's where you. And if you scroll down on those images below, I think I remember distinctly seeing it, and I remember going, "Oh shit."
But I mean, is that bad? Like, I mean, if you, is there something wrong with differences? Why should we all be the same? But why?
Okay.
Yes, it can be used, of course.
Is it good? Is it bad? I think what is dangerous about it is that it gives credence to critical race theory. That's what scares me. Because people who are less educated or less open-minded or less empathetical to other people will take that siding and be like, well, we're not the same species, so why should I give a shit about you? Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
And that's what frightens me more than anything else. And that's why I think this is like the like that forbidden knowledge tree in a sense where it just allows for such devastation and issue. I mean, look at how the Chinese treated how the Japanese treated the Chinese during the Second World War. You know what I mean? Exactly.
I get it. But that's what I'm saying. That there's always room for things to be abused, and you know what I mean, like men and women. The problem with us, especially in the Arab world, is that we want to reject the past so much. We don't want to talk about what happened. We don't want to talk about how bad things were, that it keeps repeating over and over. We need to sit down and have a conversation about how much we've killed each other, how much we hated each other, how much we were judging each other on religion and on gender and on all of that, so that we can heal from it as a society and move on.